Welcome back to Family Fridays. For the next half hour or so, we're going to be talking about the scholarship process, as well as different ways that you can acquire student aid. And as always, if you have any questions during our live stream, feel free to submit them to us. We'll have some other people monitoring the questions, and we can answer them as we go. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And we'll talk a little bit more generally about what the Office of Scholarship and Student Aid does.
Okay. So our office, our goal is to help students in affording and paying to go to school. We do that through the FAFSA and the CSS profile application. So students beginning in October 1st of the year before they come to school can fill out the FAFSA and CSS profile. We do have a deadline to submit that of March 1st. And for this upcoming year, students need to have everything that we're asking for by August 1st. So that's just an overview of like, how do you get started with financial aid? Anything you want to add?
I guess the only thing that I can say is that we have a mission to ensure that all students are able to make Carolina their dream of coming to Carolina come true. We really believe in taking great care of those who come, all of those who come our way. We're very customer service oriented with our students. Students come first here, and we really value that mission and try to take it to heart.
Such a positive message. I love it. Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, y'all are housed in Pettigrew Hall?
We are, and that is a hard thing for students to know, is where do we find the Office of Scholarships and Student Aid? So we are off of Franklin Street in Pettigrew Hall, and we have a wonderful team of counselors, one of which Antonio is, who works with students. Any questions they have, they can come in, they can drop by between 9 and 4:30, and we're there to answer any questions they have.
And if they want to schedule an appointment, they can go over to our website and do that also. And I always like to say that we're right across the street from the post office. I feel like most people know where that is on Franklin Street, so that gives them kind of an idea of where we're located.
Well, that's a wonderful location then.
Yes.
Just like on your way to lunch, just pop by
Right,
the office.
right.
That's
right.
perfect.
We have students who actually do that, so that's funny. Yeah.
It's a popular time,
Yeah.
lunch hour.
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess for right now, for our incoming students, one of the hottest topics is what students should be doing in terms of applying for aid and the entire FAFSA process. So if y'all could expand a little bit on that.
Sure. So for our incoming students, we won't be able to do anything in terms of processing their aid until they're admitted. But we have now started processing for admitted and returning students for next year. So students are starting to get emails to their UNC email. We might be requesting additional documentation from them on their to-do list in Connect Carolina, or they might have already gotten their financial aid award for next year. So we're moving along, but depending on the individual student, they might be at a different part of the process.
And to add on, for students who are bringing in documents, you can either bring them in person, email, scan, email, fax, or
And put them in the good old postal mail.
Yes, or we also have e-forms on our website, so students can also submit them that way. We're trying to make sure that we're very accessible to students. We understand that they have busy lives and they have a lot going on, so we really want to make sure that they are able to do these things very quickly.
Well, that is very much appreciated. It's great how accessible y'all are.
Yeah.
So starting out with more broadly the FAFSA, can we go over first of all what it means, what it stands for,
Sure.
maybe talk about eligibility?
So the FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. Students can complete it at fafsa.ed.gov, and this is a I would say a universal in the United States form where all students who receive Title IV funding, which is funding that comes from the government, must complete the FAFSA in order to be eligible for those federal funds. So students will start there. They would, if they're a dependent student, which means that they need to get their parents' information, they would ask for the information. They would include their information and their parents' information on the FAFSA. And when I say information, specifically I'm talking about parents' tax information or their tax information about their savings accounts. And to a lesser degree, they may ask a little bit about like tax deferred pensions, those IRS terms that maybe go people's heads, they sure go over mine. So they will ask for information like that. One of the major tools within the FAFSA is a data retrieval tool. The data retrieval tool allows students to electronically pull theirs and their parents' tax information from the IRS website into the FAFSA, so that they don't have to enter in the information, or they don't incorrectly transcribe the information from their parents' tax information to theirs. So they would submit that. It would go to FAFSA, so it wouldn't go directly to us at first, and then FAFSA would process it, and then they would send the information to the school. Here at UNC specifically, we normally get the information within 3 to 5 business days, and we will process it and see if we need additional documents, and if not, the student would be packaged if they're a returning student. For incoming students, they also need to submit the CSS profile. CSS profile is an application through College Board, which is the same entity that administers the SAT and AP tests. So they will go there, complete that form, similar to the FAFSA. It does go in a little bit of depth about parents' assets and home values and things of that nature, but it's similar to the FAFSA, and we use that for institutional aid. And now that I'm saying that, I realize I may have spoken very quickly, so I do apologize. I do tend to do that.
Yeah, just a couple of things to point out about all the great information Antonio gave. So the FAFSA is free. The CSS profile does have an application fee that is associated with it. For our returning students, they don't need to do the profile if we already have it from the year before. We'll go ahead and we'll roll that information forward for all the years that they're enrolled here. If they do leave school, when they come back, we may need it again. Also, if they have a change in their financial situation where they didn't qualify for any institutional university aid before, they can go ahead and do a profile as well. But it's not required for our returners. And we take all of that wonderful information from both those applications. And the really cool thing about Carolina is that we work really hard to meet a student's demonstrated need. And what that means in a nutshell is we take the costs to come to Carolina with the information from the FAFSA, and we determine a family's financial need. And then we use federal funds from the FAFSA and university funds from the profile, and we try to meet that need through grants, work study, loans, and help students pay to come to school here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I from my experience when I was coming in, I remember it being kind of a long, bit intimidating application. But like you said, it's a one-time thing for the most part.
Yes.
That's very good.
Yeah, we've changed it. So we listened. It is long, and it, students were spending a lot of time doing it. And so the information wasn't changing a lot from year to year. So we are able to roll that institutional application forward for our returning students.
And I do want to emphasize that the FAFSA is still required every year. So students must still submit that yearly.
Not as long.
Gotcha. So if students do have questions whenever they're filling out their applications, are they free to contact you, even if they haven't started yet and they're beginning their admission process?
Yeah, the FAFSA has a lot of little areas where you can click on the question mark and get very specific information about where to find it on your taxes. We don't typically help students fill out FAFSAs, but if they have general questions, they can certainly reach out and ask us. FAFSA also has a helpline that they can reach out to for FAFSA related questions. But our rule is typically once that information reaches us and we start processing it, there's a process that some students are aware of called verification. It's when they're randomly selected, we're going to verify the information that's on there. We're going to collect additional documentation. And those are the things that show up on a student's to-do list. And that is the process that they have to go through to get their financial aid award. We're required to do that.
And also CFNC, the College Foundation of North Carolina, has FAFSA completion dates that they have people there to work with people to complete their FAFSA. So that's also a resource that people can use.
Yeah, they can look on the CFNC website, and I believe Wake Tech usually hosts a FAFSA day where anybody can come, regardless of if they're a Wake Tech student, and get some help with the FAFSA.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's expand a little bit more on UNC's resources. So can we talk a bit about how students can utilize Connect Carolina and information from their UNC account?
So students, once they have been admitted, they create their onion. Everybody who goes to Carolina knows what the onion is, and the only name you'll ever need. So once they have that, then they can go into Connect Carolina and view their financial aid. There's a couple of things that they can do in there. They can see their award. They can also see their to-do list with that request for additional documentation. And then we also have the ability for students to access an official financial aid award letter on letterhead. Maybe you need to prove that you're getting financial aid for a lease at an apartment. That is an official form that they can print and share with their landlord. And also it can serve as a way to compare their aid from year to year and see how it's changing. What else?
So also for our returning students, satisfactory academic progress is a big thing. That means that you must maintain a 2.0, a 66.66% completion rate, or 2/3, and you cannot exceed 180-hour maximum time frame in order for you to continue to receive federal funds. In the academics section of Connect Carolina, there is a satisfactory academic progress dashboard where students can go in and monitor those standards to ensure that they're meeting, or if they're not meeting, they can reach out to us so that we can give them more information on what they need to do next.
And then some other things that may appear on a student's to-do list after they've been awarded are loan requirements. So if a student wants to take out loans, they have to initiate loan entrance counseling and complete a master promissory note, which for federal loans will last for 10 years. So once they do it, it's there. Also, they have a promissory note for UNC loans that is a new promissory note each year. And then students also can go into Connect Carolina to take actions on accepting those loans. So grants, because you don't have to pay those back, they're automatically accepted for you. But loans, a student has to decide if they want to accept, reduce the amount, or decline the loan.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So for students who are a little bit intimidated by working with so many different sources, do you have any resources to help them through your website?
We do. So we created a budgeting worksheet that is on our website. There's also a link on the bottom of the financial aid award for students where they can look at their individual needs. So we put all of the dining prices, all of the housing prices. Students might have a different tuition rate, especially North Carolina resident students, because of fixed tuition where they got the rate when they came in the first year. So we operate our cost of attendance budget on averages, knowing that it's the average a student will spend, but students are going to have their individual choices that they make. They may live off campus, so they can use this tool to plug in their numbers as well as to look at what they're getting in aid for that semester to determine, am I going to owe additional money to Carolina or am I going to get a refund? The only things that should appear on a student's bill are their tuition and fees, and then if they live on campus, if they have a meal plan on campus, or get student health insurance. So knowing that, they can kind of budget their aid and see what they'll need for the semester.
That sounds like a really handy tool.
Yes, well, we try.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want people to be able to plan ahead, so
Right.
using that will help them.
Wonderful. So how often does it happen where a student will see a change in their award amount?
So generally, once we create a student's financial aid package, that's their final package. So they shouldn't see too many changes. The only times that they would see a change are if, for example, they have special circumstances, and they would submit what's called a need analysis review form. Special circumstances are things like a parent may have lost their job, or they may have lost a parent due to death or a natural disaster. I know we've seen a lot of those lately. So things that are financial hardships on families. We can, as financial aid administrators, can go in and make a professional judgment and see if we can give the student additional aid. So a student's financial aid package may be revised in most cases to help them afford, Carolina and their expenses. Another change is also, and this is important also for our returning students who are receiving outside scholarships. When a student receives an outside scholarship, we have to go in, and I like to say swap out aid. So we don't reduce your aid, we just swap it out. So we take, we will reduce some of our aid to account for your outside scholarships. We try to make it beneficial for the student. So we try to start with what we call self-help, which is aid that you have to use to help yourself, like loans or work study that you have to work for, you have to pay back. So we try to do that first with work study, first the UNC loan, and then work study, and then subsidized loans. And we really try to save the grants for last so that students, are borrowing less. We're very proud of our low debt rates here at Carolina. So we try to make sure that students are being responsible. And if they're doing the right thing to get an outside scholarship, we try to help them with that and not take away their grant aid if we can help it. Now, if a student, receives $10,000 in a scholarship and they receive $10,000 in aid and grants, let's say, and that's the only thing they received, then we may have to reduce some of that grant funding. So I'm not saying your grants are exempt, but
Right.
We just try to save those for last.
Yeah, and as Antonio said, we want a student's financial aid to best match their financial situation. We're not trying to give them less money if they need the money, but we have to go off of what the FAFSA and the CSS profile tell us. But as he mentioned, there are special circumstances, and especially, I believe it was 2 years ago now, the government switched to asking for tax information from the prior year. So they did that so that students could apply earlier and find out their aid earlier. But in doing that, people have changes in their finances. So knowing that they can reach out to us if there has been a job loss or a divorce between their parents or a separation, any of those things that happen, letting us know so we can look at the potential to reevaluate their aid so it is more reflective of what their need is at that time.
That's great. Awesome. So if we could jump in now to talk a little bit about maybe clarifying some misconceptions people may have about what your office does and doesn't do.
So sometimes I feel like we can be students' best friends. They come to us for everything, and we're happy to help. But sometimes there are different offices that do different parts of the process, and we don't want to step on anyone's toes when it comes to that or give out incorrect information. So I think the main thing that we get are questions for the university cashier's office. So for things like billings and payments, or and specifically for our incoming students, like how to set up a payment plan. Those things are handled through the university cashier's office. Now we'll try our best to make sure that we've done everything on our part, so you're not being ping-ponged around. One thing we don't like to do is send students on a goose chase to find out what they need to find out. We try to help guide them. So always feel free to come and talk to us if you're confused about where to start. But that's one of the most important things is understanding that we don't necessarily handle billings and payments. We just give you the money to pay your bill, and the cashier's office applies those funds to your student account, and they're responsible for the bill.
Right, we're the behind the scenes people, so we don't exchange money in any way. So that's all done through the cashier. All those students are federally required to report their outside scholarships to us. The checks go to the cashier. So we never take money from students at all. And then as far as when they get their refund, also issued by the cashier, they encourage students to do direct deposit. So if you're a returning student and you haven't signed up, please do that for them. But if you have done everything with us and you have gotten all of your aid from us, then that's when it goes to the cashier for the refund questions, billing questions, as Antonio mentioned.
And also residency. Some people ask about in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition. That's handled by the university registrar. And now specifically, they have a determination system that all UNC schools must use to determine residency. So that's not even necessarily handled through them now. But if you definitely have questions regarding your residency, you're more than welcome to go to the university registrar's office to help answer those questions about residency.
So it's not that we don't want to help. We just want the experts to answer the questions because we don't want to speak for them. But again, the counselors are super helpful with all questions. questions, even letting them know who the expert is.
Awesome. Yeah. So just out of curiosity, what is your day-to-day traffic like? Do you have a lot of returning students coming in visiting?
Depends on the time of year. So right now we're seeing a lot of students coming by to drop off paperwork because of what's on their to-do list, or to come sit down with somebody because their aid isn't what they expected it to be and they have some questions. We also have a very high phone volume right now for our newly admitted students with questions because they're new to the whole experience, as the returners once were. So it depends and it varies, but this time of year the volume is very high. I think it's important for students to know that just because you hand us a form, it's not going to disappear from your to-do list that day. What we do is we take it and we link it to the student's account, and then it has to be reviewed. So that process can take 1 to 2 weeks from the time, depending on when we get it. We process them in the order in which we receive them, but they're getting hundreds and hundreds of documents. So there can be a little bit of a slowdown this time of year. And students just have to be patient with waiting. Once we have all those documents we're asking for, again, it has to have a final review on the file before they can get their award. So just having that expectation that during this time of year, it does take a little bit of time to get it, but they've got plenty of time before the fall starts. So although students want to plan ahead, they can kind of go off of, if their financial situation hasn't changed dramatically, that their aid could potentially be the same, but they shouldn't rely on that. Because, for example, if they had a sibling who was in college last year, they probably qualified for more money because those are being split. And then that sibling's graduated. So their financial aid is going to change. So there's a lot of little situations where things could cause big changes. So just being aware and being patient with our office during this time is important.
Yeah. And I think also along the same lines we were saying, a lot of families I've noticed don't share the full financial picture with a student. So they may not know what exactly their family is going through, whether or not, they got that $1 million inheritance from grandma or something like that. Students may not be aware of those types of things too.
Yeah, I think knowing we're there and knowing that we might not be able to answer right away, but we will answer you and we will get you what you need. I think right now we're around 4 to 5 days, business days, turnaround with our emails. So fairly quick, but the document processing does take some time because we have to go through every document. So,
That's very understandable.
Yeah.
And how big is your office? How many people do you have working there?
We have about 45 people total. We also have satellite campuses at some of the graduate and professional schools, like the law school and medical school, where they have their own staff. But in our office, I was about 40 people who do a variety of different things to make sure that students have the aid that they need to come to Carolina.
Yeah, and that's to service all the undergraduate students, all 18,000 or so, as well as graduate students.
Yes, so some, as Antonio mentioned, some of the professional schools have their own aid representative, but yes, that is the entire university. And then also our counselors not only meet with students in person and talk to them over the phone, but we go out and we do outreach. So we partner with diversity and inclusion for some of their events, with admissions for newly admitted students to talk to them about financial aid. We go out to local schools. So we really just want to help people. And even student groups on campus, if they wanted somebody to come talk about financial aid or budgeting, they can make that request on our website. We do have an outreach request form. So if they wanted to have somebody come talk to a group of them about how do I budget my financial aid, will I get a refund? That's something that we offer to students.
Oh, that's amazing. Sounds like, I mean, it's hard to work with such a large population of students. So it's great that you are getting around so fast.
We're trying.
Yeah. Well, I guess now the best thing to talk about will be the best way for students to contact you with any questions, both returning students and incoming. We understand that, you have a large volume of people reaching out to you now. What will be the most efficient way to do that?
I think the best way right now is probably email. Definitely they can stop by the office as well. There's always a counselor who is on duty who can talk to them. just keeping in mind when they contact us to have a PID number ready so that will help us move them along more quickly. We do communicate with the UNC official email. That's how we send all of our communications. So making sure you're not missing anything. Like Antonio said, we'll send out students who are at risk of satisfactory academic progress. Like knowing those things early so you can address them is very important. They can call and they can email, come in person. Any of those work for us.
Yes. And what's your email address?
It's aidinfo, AIDINFO at unc.edu. And one of our financial aid counselors they're always managing that inbox, so no email goes unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And y'all are open over the summer as well, right?
We are there Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30. So every day except for holidays, university holidays.
Yep. Well, that's great. So that especially gives our incoming students time during orientation to come in if they have any questions.
Mm-hmm.
Same hours, 9 to 4:30.
9 to 4:30. And as Antonio mentioned earlier, we do have an appointment booking system where they can make an appointment on our contact page on our website, which is studentaid.unc.edu.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I guess that covers everything that we have to talk about. Do y'all have any closing messages for our incoming students, returning students? Any positive messages of hope to give them?
The only thing that I can say is if you're confused, just please ask questions. I think it's better to ask questions up front instead of messing something up, and then we have to do more work on the back end to try to correct the mistake. So,
right. Yes, don't change your FAFSA. Don't do that. Once it's submitted, don't make any changes. Ask questions.
Yes.
And then feel free to reach out.
Yes, and like just over these past 30 minutes, I've gotten to know a lot more about reaching out to y'all, and it sounds like you're there to help. You're so great at communicating. So
that's what they pay us for.
Incoming students, please come ask your questions. Returning students, come and stop by. So this is a great resource.
Yes, and hopefully we'll see everyone soon.